Lisa Vento Nielsen here from The Next Step, making another podcast about college readiness. I'm really focusing on college readiness right now. My business, The Next Step, focuses on entrepreneurship, college readiness, career readiness, and all things in terms of careers and education. But for right now, these podcasts are about my college readiness initiative, which is based off of the book that I've written on college readiness, and it's the Prof's Guide to Surviving High School and Kicking Butt in College. It's available on my website, thenextstep1234.com, and also available via Amazon. As a published author and as someone who has worked in academia for the last 13 years, I thought it would make sense to continue to share my expertise about college readiness in different modes. I'm using YouTube. I have 3 videos up, and I will definitely appreciate it if you check those out for the next step. I have 3 college readiness videos out, and this is my second podcast on college readiness. The first one was just an overview that really was about understanding who you are and what you like to do. The other thing about my podcasts and my videos is that I'm really gearing them towards the middle schooler and the high school student. As an educator for 13 years in higher ed, and someone who has worked K to 12 for 2 years, and starting my 3rd year this year, I am exposed to lots of different age groups, lots of different talents, lots of different ideas. And what I see more and more is that most of the students that I'm dealing with in your age groups feel like college is something that is very far away and feel very overwhelmed in terms of why they need to be ready, how they need to be ready, and all these different things. So it's my goal to make this whole process a little bit easier by sharing some of my thoughts, sharing my lessons, and just getting things a little bit easier for you guys, because that's really important to me. This is something I'm super passionate about. I feel that a college education is something that is very important. No matter what you read and no matter what information that's out there that talks about how, college is not for everybody, or how the jobs that you could get without a college degree, at some point in your career, no matter where you are or what you do, if you don't have a college degree, you will not be able to get to your next step. You will not be able to live to your full potential. That's just something I've been seeing as an executive entrepreneur and educator, someone who's been out there, someone who knows people in their 50s and 60s that are still struggling to finish their last few credits so that they could say they have that degree so that they can move on to something else. So I really think it's super important, but I also think that for some people, it's not the path for them. And for those people, there might be the better options of a trade, learning to be an electrician, learning to be a plumber. There is no downfall to that. And I think what this post today is about, what this podcast today is about, is really about this mentality we have about what you do. So I kind of mentioned this briefly in the first one, that, when you're with adults, you'll hear them talking, or someone will ask you, oh, what do your parents do? And something I always say in my college classroom is, when I talk about technology and how jobs are changing and how there really is this potential where technology will take the jobs, where we have artificial intelligence that are working as teachers' assistants or being programmed to work as teachers' assistants. And people don't even know it's a robot. They think it's a real person. A lot of people think Siri is real. Siri is being redesigned to come out with a more advanced option, something that can really process things. So there's so much going on in terms of technology, in terms of jobs, that really a lot of career fields are at risk. So you really need to think about how you can move forward. And what I tell my students a lot is that, there are a lot of jobs that can't be computerized or outsourced. And some of them are not the fancy dancy jobs that, you want to say you have. When I was growing up and when I was in college, everyone wanted to work on Wall Street. And now the general rule of thumb is that less people want to work on Wall Street, but everybody kind of wants to have like a cool tech job. All of that is great, but the people who sometimes make out the best are the ones who work sometimes the blue collar jobs, the retired cops, the retired sanitation workers, the people who retire with a pension, which means that they are guaranteed a certain income over the course of their lives, as opposed to people who work in the more white collar jobs where your retirement is really on you. There's very rare where big companies have pensions anymore. They used to, but not so much anymore. So it's just my little blubber about different career paths and why you should be open while still considering the fact that you need to be educated or trained or something to be able to move forward. And I was reading something on Career Builder yesterday that talked about the 33 worst pieces of advice that people had ever been given. And so many times it was brought up, study what you like, or, and like that was a mistake to have been told, or do what you love and the money will come. People are always saying these things are not true. And they're not generally true, but they are still possible. It is still possible to do what you love and have the money come from it. But it's most important to just remember what it is you love and to keep that in your back pocket for when you need something to help you through. So it really is important to kind of be focused on this idea of college. And one of the ways that you could do that is to just really rely on the skill sets that you have and understanding what it is that you would like to learn, and to be focused on learning, and to remember that the word college ready is really something that is an open-ended concept. There are some people that are ready from the day they're born. They're passing calculus regents, they're taking 3 languages, they're playing the cello. Those individuals are ready. But they have their own set of downfalls, which I will talk about in another podcast. This podcast is to all my late bloomers. Those of you who, like me, went to high school just to show up, did okay, but nothing to write home about, were not playing the cello and running student government or doing anything more than just existing. And that happens to a lot of students for a lot of different reasons. And my story is long and not for this format, but someday we'll share. I think what's important is to remember that for us late bloomers, there is still the potential. There is still the spark. It's just about finding it. And that means that when the time comes to write your application essays for college, your story is different than the people who have all of these things. But that doesn't make your story less. It just means it's different. It just means that you haven't yet gotten to your why. Your why is what drives you. Your why is what other people have who are more advanced, theoretically, than you are. The ones who are not late bloomers have a why. Sometimes that why, though, is what their parents want them to do and not necessarily what they want to do. Like, I'll see a lot of students who are really amazing and talented at something, but they're miserable because they don't want to be doing it. They do it to keep others happy. So that's one of the downfalls that I was saying about those students that are not late bloomers. For those of us who are late bloomers, there really is that potential. And the potential needs to be realized. And one of the ways it can be realized is by having a great teacher, someone you trust, someone who believes in you. Those things are priceless. And from what I've seen in all of my teaching experiences, there are many, many teachers out there like that. Many, many teachers that look to find the students that are struggling and that are there to help them. So I hope that you have each found a teacher like that. I know for me in my classrooms, that is me. I am the teacher that says, everyone can do this. You're shy and you're afraid to present. I'm going to work with you extra until you're ready to do it. And again, most of my experiences like this are in the college level because in my K-12 experience, I'm a floater. I'm not there consistently. I'm in one class one day, another school another. But for my college experiences, it really is about identifying and fostering the potential in everyone. And really recognizing that to be college ready means that you just have to be ready to learn. That's the most important thing. So it doesn't mean you have to have an A+ average. It doesn't mean that you need to know how to write 10-page papers. Those things are important. Don't get me wrong, you do need to have a great average, although having a perfect GPA is not the most important thing in the world. You do need to know how to write long papers. You do need to know how to write. But those things are universal. You should know those things. But if you don't know them yet, it's something that you can learn. You can learn these things. You just have to be willing to learn. You need to be willing to try. You need to read a book like the one I wrote. It doesn't have to be my book. It just has to be a book like the one I wrote. The one I wrote is very conversational. There's no sources. I am the source. There's no big words. I don't need to say big words to get across my point. I'm very simple. My point is that you need to be willing to learn. You need to be willing to identify where you would be happiest, what you would be happy doing. And you need to do that in time. You could start college with an undeclared major. That's absolutely fine. At some point you have to declare something though. And you could be ready for that in different ways. And I mentioned some tactics in that in my books. But I think something to really keep in mind is just this idea of being a late bloomer and recognizing that that just means you haven't identified your potential yet. And that just means that you need to rely on your environment, your teachers, your family, a trusted family friend, someone who could help you kind of move towards this goal of being ready to be educated. And it's more so than saying, oh, you need to get straight A's in college and you need to do this. No. You need that piece of paper that says that you have a degree. You need that high school diploma first. You need to do the best you can in high school to graduate. Then you need that degree from college, that piece of paper that no one could ever take away from you, that says that you are educated, that you have a degree. So again, this is what I'm truly passionate about. I am the first person in my family to have received a bachelor's degree, and I'm the first person to have received a master's degree. Of course, at this point, my younger brother has far surpassed me, and I'm okay with that. I could deal. One day I'll be a doctor, but not anytime soon. And that's for the PhD, not for an MD. So there's just so many things around why I'm so passionate about education. It's something that you could always rely on, that particularly for women, that we wind up taking time out of the workforce, either to care for family members or to care for our young children. Having that degree means you have skills, means you have the ability to get yourself to a career if and when you need it. And this also applies to some men, because a lot of men also sometimes take time off of work to help with family. Not as much statistically as women, but still something that happens. So I hope this podcast helped give you another insight into why I'm so passionate about college readiness. And I talked a little bit about being a late bloomer. I spoke a little bit about what I talk about in my classrooms in terms of career paths and how to make sure that you don't judge it too harshly. There are many different career paths. So in terms of education and training, I hope you learn with me at thenextstep1234.com. Happy hunting. Thank you.